and welcome back to the Common Ground webinar series, Season 3. This season is all about you because all the sessions are going to be around the market offerings and the value these offerings are going to bring to you to enable change at various levels, individual, team, and organization. This time round, we'll be having monthly webinars, starting off today with episode 1. I am Monica Mudam Shetty from Hyderabad, and along with me, I have Kaushik Srinivasan from Chennai, and we shall be your moderators for today. Before we go ahead, quick housekeeping items. This is a 1-hour session. Any questions that you have for our speakers today, please share them through the panelist box in the QA box for the panelists so that we can take it up appropriately. This session is being recorded and will be available on the PMI India YouTube channel in the upcoming days. The Pdu claim information will be shared with you at the end of the session. So today's episode is going to focus all about how to unlock citizen development in your organization, how to deliver projects faster, transform processes, and reduce costs. We are pleased to have with us two industry veterans in a fireside conversation. Mr. Shubhrupal, Senior Vice President and Global Head, Lean Digital Transformation at Genpact. He is a dynamic leader passionate about distributed innovation and digital disruption and is driving large transformational programs delivering business impact and value. He's also an avid propagator of the low-code, no-code approach. Along with him, we have Dr. Srini Srinivasan, Regional Managing Director, PMI South Asia. He has over 30 years of global professional experience in various senior leadership roles and has also been trusted advisor to CXOs across multiple industry sectors. Dr. Srini, Mr. Shubhro, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I would now like to hand over to you to take forward. Dr. Srini.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. Shubhro, as somebody who lives and breathes citizen development, can you help us demystify CD? What is it? What does it do?
Yeah. So first of all, Srini, hi, Monica, hi, Kaushik, thank you, and everyone who's listening into this. Like any good digital transformation initiative, before I demystify, I would like to mystify this a bit, right? Because, and I think it's important to little understand the principles and fundamentals behind this. In the industry, there are three terms. There is low code, there is no code, and there is citizen development. Now, generally what we do is tend to mix up all three of them together and then use it as one paradigm. However, they're distinct from each other. I think the first purpose, because it's a new thing, it's a hype in the industry, like so many people want to be associated with it. I think it's important to understand the fact that there are three different concepts coming together, interlinked, and enabled to one of them. I think that's the first one, because as you go through the literature, as the audience goes and meets people, you will see them interchange in a pretty sometimes confusing manner. See, low code technically hasn't been new. It has been there from maybe 50s. It was first, while we look at citizen development as a business initiative predominantly, low code has been predominant in IT initiatives because, just to manage backlog of requirements, just to manage the shortage of skills of people. And I think therefore there has been movement from object orientation, reusability, modularity, and finally to graphical user interface, low code development platforms. Now, as the low code development platforms became a level of maturity, and I think it would be early, I would say early 2000, or early 2000, around that time when the BPMS industry was just coming into play, and their value proposition was, hey, enterprise is nothing but a sequence of business processes. If you can draw out the business process on a simple visual-like modeling platform, you should be able to develop automatically business application from that. To be very honest, I mean, this was where I was maybe 15 years back, and that's where we were talking about low code, no code. I was heading a consulting division for one of the STEMs. We are talking about citizen development, low code, no code at that point of time without actively thinking about it. And now, obviously, it has manifested itself in many different forums, in many different ways. A lot of great applications has availability for a low code platform. Now, a low code platform enables citizen development. And to your question, Srini, it's important to understand the background and genesis of this. Citizen development is basically asking existing business users to build application, but with the cognizance and with the connivance of IT, right? That's what it is, and in a very, very nutshell. Again, if I go back to citizen development, people have been doing citizen development for ages. What we call the shadow IT organization. It has been a problem. It has been a boon for maybe 2-3 decades. But citizen development takes the availability of low-code, no-code platforms, gets IT governance pictures into one play, and allows his business to do coding and business application in an extremely agile manner. You heard some of those things coming up in the video, but that's it. That's what citizen development is: getting business to do it in collaboration with IT.
Thank you for that. I think that helps all of us kind of put this in a proper context. So what I heard you say is a low-code development platform enables citizen development.
Yeah.
With cognizance, with support where required from IT.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. I'd like to take a minute to see what the audience has in the back of their minds. Kaushik, is it possible to find out what the audience thinks are some of the biggest challenges in this area?
Yes, definitely. And I would also like to introduce the audience to Slido, a tool that we are going to be using this time around in Common Ground series. So let's take half a second. If you have an alternate device or open up a separate tab, please log into Slido, sli.do. This will be a one-time activity. Please don't close it till the end of the session today. We've got 2 questions coming up. sli.do, and it will request you to put in a code. The code is 81200. The code for today's questions are 81200. Just log into sli.do on your mobiles or on your computers, and it would request you to put in a code. The code is 81200. Keep it on for a couple of questions. I'll give it 10 seconds for everybody to get in, and then we will have the first question. Like Srini said, what we would like to know from you is what you think are the biggest challenges that comes into your mind when you think of citizen development. The question is live now. You can put in a word or a phrase, and the question is now live. And we will see the answers as they come up. And people can add more than one answer too.
So really interesting. The word cloud is really, really interesting. Srini, as you pick it up and as the word cloud settles in, just one trick to word clouds. Obviously, look at the largest one, but look at some of the smaller ones. They are maybe the most interesting ones which come up.
So Shubhro, if more people put in the same word, it brings it up in a bigger font.
Yeah.
We are in India, so democracy not always absolutely perfect. On the counter on the top, we see there are about 100 responses. So 100 individuals have responded. If a person responds more than once, it still doesn't count. But the answers do pop up. So we have about 104 responses. We'll run it for another 10 seconds. Okay, so Srini and Shubhra, I'll hand it over to you. When I stop the poll, the word cloud disappears, so you can pick your.
I'm equally fascinated, Shubhra, by the word cloud. Clearly, what I'm picking up from the feedback from the audience is one of the issues that they're most concerned about is that citizen development suddenly increases the population of people who can create business applications within an organization. And also, I got the sense from the audience that they're concerned about security, data security, and guardrails and so on, as well as how to have the right awareness. But some of the smaller clouds, is this sustainable long term?
Yeah.
How do you manage change and uncertainty associated with this? How do you manage risk? So those are some of the pockets of thought that are coming out from the audience. I want to let you speak about what your personal experience has been in terms of helping implement a platform similar to this in your own experience. What have been the challenges? What have been the opportunities? And what can you tell us?
I think, first of all, let me pick up population. It has been a population that, Srini, the way you articulate this was, there's too many people trying and coming to build applications. And therefore, how do you manage the whole volume of this? Now, I understand this is a challenge, but let's look at some facts. Let's look at some stats. I mean, I think the latest IDC projections actually show that we're going to build a ridiculous number of apps. I don't understand, I really, truly don't believe that number. It's 500 million apps, which are going to get built in the next 3 years. It's almost equal to the number of apps we have built maybe in the last 30, 35 years. So just to give a sense of what is a latent business demand and what's the business demand coming outside, we don't have so many skilled people. Irrespective of whatever platform, whatever technology you are in, you just do not have this need to get over this. So first of all, business needs are going to enhance dramatically. And why are they enhancing dramatically? I think we all know the market. The market is extremely competitive. We have to evolve. We have to be agile. We have to be very change friendly. And therefore, the frequency of number of apps, updates to it is going to go up dramatically. Now, to be very honest, do not see any other option other than citizen development in some shape and form to do that. And remember, when you as an IT manager or an IT strategy, Srini, for you, the biggest nightmare is, when you have a lot of high critical requirements coming at one go, because requirements translation is a big challenge. So therefore, the combination of using the business enterprise and who know their requirements really well and getting them to help hopefully build the kind of applications they want, I think is critical. So I don't personally look at population as a challenge. I think population is a must for us to get into this world. I think that's number one. The other thing I would like everyone to again reflect upon, I think it's sometimes important to understand the grounding. Citizen development is not new. It is already happening. I mean, all of you, I see, 20, 30 different organizations from here, you would know very well. If you go back to your own organizations, there are shadow IT organizations sitting within your teams, within your enterprises. So citizen development is just happening. It is just not happening on an industrial scale. It's not happening in a regulated manner. So therefore, I think leveraging this population, making them under a common umbrella, giving them standard guidelines, I think it's going to be a must. I know with the Srini, whether that's something which you have seen as well, but I just think it's a boon, and it's not a boon, it's a must for us to just meet this huge demand.
I think I'm stunned actually by the statistics that you threw out, but not really surprised. When you look at a projection of 500 million apps in basically kind of doing in 3 or 4 years what we've done since time immemorial, I think the key is what you talked about, which is the business requirements. Are calling for speed, calling for business value, calling for high levels of innovation, and that in turn is spurring this demand for apps. And so what I'm hearing from you is, look, this is reality. We have to keep up. We have to find a way to keep up.
Absolutely. And the second thing which comes up is security, right? And you know, security today is a massive concern, right? I mean, with work from home and remote working, it's a massive concern now. But I sometimes think we actually make it. I mean, first of all, security is very important. But security in the context of low code and no code, yeah, I mean, it suddenly feels, as an IT professional, feel like, okay, hundreds of people, I don't control their building stuff. You know, it's going to be a nightmare. In my experience, it has not been the case. It has not been the case. What you do need, irrespective of citizen development, I think that let's take citizen development. When you talk about security and risk and data management, actually more than security, I'm more worried about data management, data definitions. I think that worries me more than just security, because irrespective of citizen development, organizations have to invest in security, right? And that, but it is physical level of security, data security, whether it's IP security, that has to be invested on. And that has got irrespective to citizen development. What citizen development is going to let you do is to open the security protocols, the same security protocols which organizations think they are comfortable with, which are available today to their IT organizations, that is going to get available for the business organization, right? So therefore, I don't see a challenge, and I don't see a huge risk on security, provided your organization already has decided on a common set of very strong security and data principles. Now, what really starts happening is when you start any citizen development program, Srini, it's needless to say that the governance framework by which you do, the purpose of what you are doing, and therefore defining what kind of applications can someone open to build citizen development on. Like the way I do it is maybe do a service line or a domain matrix with the kind of application. So are you going to build citizen development regulatory affairs? Maybe the answer is no. But are you going to get citizen development happening in maybe cash applications? Maybe the answer is yes, right? So therefore, this is very important. Similar, the kind of architectural stack or technology stack where you're going to open citizen development is very critical. So are you going to open it for system of engagements? Workflows, BPMS, maybe yes. Are you going to open it for visualization platforms? Maybe yes. Are you going to hit system records and data modelers? Maybe not so much, right? So if you are able to have very strong data and security protocols for the enterprise, and you have a governance framework and a clear matrix on which areas are going to allow citizen development to take place, go through a proper education process, and identify the risk based on the matrix which I just talked about, it does not really become so much of a challenge. I mean, obviously, it seems fearful, but if you peel the onion and break it down to a final structure, it is not so scary. The scary part tends to be data, because, you know, data is the next oil, analytics, you know, I don't want to start the topic for this, but what really happens to be very, very careful about this is, today, organizations, while I think they have done a decent job in security and IP protection, they haven't done a great job in understanding the data structures, data mapping. Master data is a problem for every organization. So when you take that master data and you start building your applications and visualization reports, you have a challenge of maybe, you know, taking wrong decisions, or vis-a-vis, right? If you are taking a data, modifying it, and transferring back to a database without the right protocols of data cleansing and data definition and data validation, then you kind of create another data mess, which I think is going to be very, 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 very future. So, you know, I didn't see that particular thing come out, but I personally feel very uncomfortable about data unless that's something I spend more time on. Security, as I said, very important, very, very focused about it. But once you put a good structure, I think that does not tend to be a big problem as we roll it out.
So what I'm getting out of this, Shubro, is the guardrails are extremely critical.
Yeah.
And that would address a number of the concerns that people posted around security, risk, and so on. But let me ask you a blunt question, which many people probably have in the back of their minds, but didn't put it there. Are you trying to put the software industry out of business with this?
No, just a very simple. I mean, let's go back to the same stats. If those stats are true, $500 million apps. I mean, I really don't think software industry is going out of play anytime soon. The reality is that what I'm going to expect is today software engineering. If I look at the pool today, if I look at the powerhouses for software industry, right? Just pure manpower perspective, India, parts of Southeast Asia, parts of Eastern Europe. Today the talent pool there is fairly restricted talent pool. It goes through a regimented training process, and then you come out of training process, and then even that skill building is not sufficient. All the large IT companies runs their own specific schools to get trained people up to the curve. So I think getting talent into the IT industry has been a challenge. While we are such a large population, it is one of the most sought after skills which we have. So what I am expecting is the other way around. What I'm expecting is we will not only have a set of people who are extremely important about getting the large complex business applications, which is where pure hardcore software development people would do, but the business facing applications, and at least the less complex of them, will be developed by citizen development. As their skill levels grow up, I have seen in my organization where we have rolled it out in Genpact, multiple citizen development programs, we have seen people wanting to take the switch. So we have, in fact, found a huge talent pool, which is available to a digital organization, who are now just not coming with basic tech skills, but they're coming with domain skills, which are so critical to do that. So I think it's just going to enrich the software industry and make it larger.
Wonderful. That is music to my ears, and I'm sure to a lot of people in the audience. Kaushik, let's get some audience interaction. What are some of the key skills? Subro alluded to the kind of skilling that is required. What, in your minds, folks, are some of the key skills required to be a successful citizen developer?
Right. To everybody, again, the question is available on Slido, the same code, sli.do and 81200. You can start typing in your answers. You can already see answers flowing in.
PMP pops up, Srini. It should be music for years.
I saw that. PMP, ACP.
Yeah, that's the big one. Empathy. I saw something flashing on chat. Very interesting one. Can't say how important that is.
Oh, that's a lot.
Shubro, Srini, we have about 360 people on the chat, so we are only like 1/3 through the answers.
I can imagine. I can imagine. No, this is an important conversation to have.
Shubro, I would also like to take this as an opportunity to say this is one of the terrific features of the Common Ground series, that the audience engagement and participation is really high and enthusiastic. You have a tough time coming in the question and answer session.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, to be very honest, that's what I am here to actually hear the questions and some of this feedback which is coming in, because that's what keeps me in touch with the larger industry and what they are thinking. So looking forward to that session. But Srini, that's a lots of skills for you.
That's a lot of skills. That's a lot of skills. In fact, I'm going to request you, Shubro, to try to give us a short list from your experience, and then I'll take a couple of minutes to speak about what PMI is doing in this regard.
Yeah. So the two top ones which really comes up is domain knowledge and logical thinking. I think that is what something which really comes out. But one of the trends which is an underlying trend between 3 or 4 items which are on that page is actually about a methodology, right? And which I thought was, it was, while the word wasn't itself that big, but it was the same sense of methodology structure came out in 4 or 5 different responses. So if you combine them together, that might be the most. So domain, logical, structured methodology for going about this new world. Srini, that will be my shortlist for you.
Makes sense. Fortunately, Shubro, fortunately for us, we're also thinking along the same lines as PMI. So what we're trying to do right now is we've put together a body of knowledge on citizen development. And with it, we're putting together adoption frameworks, which is one of the things you talked about, how to make sure that there's a methodology, there's a structure. What are the adoption frameworks? What are the applications of those adoption frameworks? What are some case studies? What are some best practices? But most importantly, we are putting together some courses and certification around many of the elements that you just talked about. So domain expertise, business knowledge, getting closer to the business, because many people in this audience are in traditional project management roles. So how do they, and one of their challenges, as you know, is how do they get closer to the business? How do they get recognized as a business partner? And at the same time, we are looking at some of the other skills that you've talked about, the empathy, the collaboration, the problem solving, especially in light of the new reality of distributed teams and remote working. So we're putting all of that together. That's one track. The second track is we've started a discussion with NASSCOM to try to figure out how both our organizations might find a way to provide this structure that you talked about. That is still under discussion, and hopefully we will come out with a model that makes sense to the audience. My final question to you is, I've spoken about PMI, I've spoken about NASSCOM. How can bodies, industry bodies and professional bodies like PMI and NASSCOM, how can they play a role in your mind? How can they help?
I think the first, Srini, the first point, and you kind of alluded to it, and the NASSCOM panel which you and I were on, you heard 7 other people talking about exactly some of the things which we just talked about. I think let's again go back to fundamental. It's a new age technology, right? I mean, if you have 360 people on this call today, the importance of the first question you asked me is an important one, because they might have 360 different interpretation of what, first of all, citizen development is, and then they might have maybe 1,000 interpretations of what is the rollout mechanism and how to go about doing this. So in this current world, and at least in our organization, we started this journey maybe around 7-8 years back. But we built and learned the methodology on ourselves. We realized, okay, this is what doesn't work. This is the metric. These are the applications. But not everyone who's starting on the journey has to innovate and find it on their own. If you're able to get what maybe a best series of best practices, a series of actions, what is the strategy, what is the adoption framework, what is the training mechanism, I think that is a very critical role which organizations like PMI and NASSCOM can take. Particularly from the NASSCOM perspective, skill building, such a big focus for us. Growth of the software industry, such a big focus for us. So how can we harness this huge human capital potential, essentially business users, coming and then contributing towards the growth of the industry, I think it's going to be very, very, very important for us. The other part of this is, Srini, and this is something you and I have talked about. Today, when something reaches at the top of a hype curve, like which citizen development is, I doubt you will come across a platform today who does not claim what citizen, they have citizen development. Like almost everyone would say, I am low code, no code. I mean, you take up, you got Microsoft, Salesforce, Pega, you take everyone, right? Everyone has a low code, no code approach. I think the whole conceptual, one is the exact execution of low code approach, but how do you set up an organization, right? How do you set up an IT organization? What applications do you allow? Within those applications, what is your tools, recognized tools which you allow to do that? I think it's going to be critical. So helping organizations, let's say if you're looking for a workflow, here are the top 5 products which can help you identify in a low code, no code manner. If you're looking at visualization of the top 5 products, we can do that. I think that would be a great starting point because, personally for me, I went through the entire process through hit and trial, POCs and so on and so forth, which I think we don't have to. And that's where NASSCOM, particularly on skill building, and PMI, particularly on the structure, and helping us identify what are maybe the first set of options I go after. I think it's going to be critical. The only other last point I will talk about, Srini, is you talked about case studies. Now, in my own personal experience, and no disrespect to case studies, they just always tell, I have done something really nice. They're always brilliant. Now, everybody on this call knows that life is not always brilliant. So therefore, in addition to case studies, it is important to publish war stories. And because that is what these 360 people on this call are going to find valuable, and not case studies, which is always look glitzy. And yes, I came in, I did this, and I got this application out. That's not, but what are the 5 things you blew up while doing it is what people need to learn. And I think that is something we should publish and share much more widely.
Brilliant point. To me, I can sum that up as practitioners helping practitioners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not theory BS, but practitioners.
Absolutely.
Each other. Oh, this is eye-opening for me. I know I've had the privilege, Shubhro, of spending time with you before in the NASSCOM panel and otherwise. And every time I talk to you, I learn something new. And I'm sure the audience today has learned not just what this whole definition is, but what's in it, why is it important, and most importantly, why many of us should think about skilling ourselves to move into this area if you're already not doing it. And I think this also answers a key question that many of our audience members ask me from time to time. How can we be more relevant? How can we create more value for ourselves and for our organization? And I think you've given us plenty of practical tips to think about. So I really appreciate this, but I think once more, this is not about me, it's about the audience. So Kaushik, I'm going to request you to moderate a Q&A session with Shubhro. People came here to listen to him, not to me. So please, Kaushik, over to you.
All right. If only we could develop an app that will automatically unmute based on our lip movement. First project for citizen development, I guess. Shubhro, that was extraordinarily insightful, and the reflection is in the number of people who have engaged with us through Q&A, through the Slido app. I think we got about 250 answers on both the questions. One of the questions that did come on the Slido app, I do not know who put that in, is where do you get started? What are the tools if you're absolutely new to citizen development? Is there any tool or a platform that allows you to get started?
Yeah, and first of all, yes, there is. But I would actually request the individual not to start with that. Don't jump to the tool. Start with the purpose.
Right.
And if you are part of your organization, if your organization has a citizen development program, just first understand the purpose of it. Is it about employee engagement to get employees to leverage their creative human potential? Is it to create a backlog of applications which has come in? So I think it's first important to understand Why are we doing this? Now, once you do that why, then based on the outcome which you want to achieve, there would be a bunch of solutions. As I just talked about, for every particular almost every particular solution today has a low code, no code module. You got Gartner's quadrants, which will talk about low code applications platforms. Those are essentially filled up with, I would say, three kind of players: the erstwhile BPMS players, the Pegas, APNs of the world, the Salesforce, Microsoft of the world, which are more cloud-based, and the third ones would be players like Mendix, who have actually used only just being built for citizen development programs. So once you go back to the purpose and touching your purpose and touching your domain, whichever is the closest application, I think we should do that. For example, if you are a business user for, let's say, in the marketing function, and one of your objective is to get a sense of what kind of sales figures are coming into play. So in that case, go back to the enterprise. The enterprise must have, let's say, an enterprise visualization platform. If it's Microsoft, we can use Power Apps and build BIs on top of it. If it's Salesforce, you can leverage Salesforce itself to build on it. So it's important to understand then the purpose and then find the closest approved set of apps within the organization for which you can start building. And I think that's where someone should really start.
Amazing. And just going from there, this question is from Abhishek. He says, will the higher adoption of citizen development have an influence in our education systems itself, or what we are going to learn as students in the future? Where do you see that going?
I think it's Abhishek, fantastic question. Absolutely, and I think it's absolutely. I think irrespective of citizen development, I think there's a need for us to anyways reflect on the education system and what we are turning to. But to your point, this whole again, what I just talked about, the two kinds of IT worlds are going to continue, right? The traditional IT, hardcore, complex development is going to continue. And it has its own education system and process which kind of gets to that. But when I come to the business application, people who maybe have not been trained into IT, and citizen development would assume that all those people are coming into IT and trying to play a part there. So the skill, a foundational skill, there are three foundational skills that people can pick up to the entire education system. And unfortunately, we don't spend enough time on them. That one is actually not about math skills. It's actually about one of the points which came out is empathy. Right? What does your audience want? What do you want? So having an empathetic user experience, I think that's getting grounded on that, I think is going to be critical. And focus on logical and business dimension. I think that is going to be an extremely, extremely focal area, just because even if you're doing citizen development, you still have to break down the problem into logical parts and try and solve for it. And the third one will be the relevant business domain. So I can see a specialization coming out from standard business domains. I can see more emphasis on logical, and I'm really hopeful of getting more empathy and more user at the center experience in place to kind of come through. Our education system process should equip any citizen developer to go onto this bandwagon and go through this.
Great. I think you also covered the answer for a question from Parivesh, who wanted to know, will domain skills overshadow technical skills? From what you said, logical thinking and business domain knowledge are important, but would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, see, as I said, I see this world as two intermeshed world, right? Your technical skills are never going to go away. You still are going to need your large, complex ERP applications, your system of records. There, you would need hardcore technology skills for doing that. And a subset of that would be available for people to build apps on top of it using the business domain. So I don't see it's either or. For citizen development, it is maybe more important to get the three skills I talked about. But the majority or the large portion of the world would also be about getting these complex applications up, and their hardcore technical and software knowledge would be very, very important. In fact, the ideal combination of someone who runs a citizen development program, it's someone ideally who has an understanding of a hardcore full stack technology program so that they understand the challenges, nuances, and somebody who has spent maybe an equal amount of time in business. So that's the ideal combination which someone look at if somebody is looking for finding someone who can head this entire function.
So I'm just going back to one of the comments that came in the Slido answer and linking this. You said 3 of the foundational skills. One is empathy. What is the role of soft skills that are going to come into play? Specifically, the person mentioned, how are we going to handle egos and conflicts? You mentioned shadow IT a couple of times. So the whole construct of where do you see ethics, soft skills, how do you manage interpersonal conflicts and challenges? Where do you see that going in the context of citizen development?
I think interpersonal skills challenges have existed since the advent of mankind, right? So unlikely citizen development is going to solve for it. I think, see, in an organization, in a large complex organization, or for the matter in a small organization also, the reason interpersonal challenges would always exist. Now, methods, mechanisms, roles and responsibilities, deliverables, RACEs, which is the methodology and the framework, are what we see the set of rules by which you guide your actions is what really ensures that those do not become dysfunctional to the organization. Sometimes interpersonal differences are extremely important, Kaushik, because that just brings different diverse viewpoints to solve a particular problem, because being diverse is maybe the most important skill which you need to solve any enterprise problem today. So what we need is finally a methodology and a clarity about the roles and responsibilities of individuals. The moment you have a lot of overlap, a lot of unclear roles and responsibilities, that is what gets interpersonal skills to infest, and therefore it can have a negative connotation. If you manage the interpersonal differences in a structured, methodical manner, they're actually quite hopeful and quite beneficial to enterprise, particularly when you're designing new solutions and business applications. So the structure methodology, very, very important to solve for it.
So when we talk about structured methodology, we are effectively touching on one of the key areas of all the project management learning, which is stakeholder management. So can I tell Parivesh, who also wants to know whether project management is going to become redundant, that the answer is no. But how do project managers adapt themselves to citizen development world?
So unfortunately, citizen development is also a project. It is just done by people. It is just done by people who do not have coding background. That's what it is. So whether you're following Agile, whether you're following SDLC, that is waterfall is not going anywhere, right? So it has to go there. In fact, what it will do, it will need the improvement of the PM skills will become a lot more important, because you are working in again, traditional IT, while it is slow, while there's a huge backlog, but it's more structured. It's evolved over 50 years. You know the basic principles, you know the best practices. This is a little bit of the new world, right? You're going to suddenly face a whole bunch of people which are very diverse in nature, trying to fit into a methodology, and they're going to question why, and they're going to question at every point of time. So PM skills for a citizen development program are actually 2 to 3x more critical than a normal IT program, just because of the diverse views and the potential variable paths a process application development might take place. So no, not going anywhere.
Fantastic. And I know we have mentioned IT a couple of times in a few answers in the discussion, right? So can we bust the myth about, is citizen development only applicable to the IT world, or can it be applied to other industries? There's a specific question from Pradeep about how it is relevant to core engineering, but whether it's core engineering, oil, gas, EPCs, how can citizen development extend beyond IT? I think there is a misconception developing there.
Yeah, I think again, it's a brilliant question. The citizen development term is used specifically in the context of software development application, but the relevant term in this case, Kaushik, is to a large number of spaces distributed innovation, right? Which is solving, and there are many manifestations of this. Crowdsourcing is a manifestation of that. So in every particular industry where you have a lot of consumers and a lot of players trying to come into play into it, we need to distribute innovation, offer some methodology in which you can take all the various ideas and inputs, give critical parts for them, crowdsource it, manage it, and build, in some cases, a particular product, not necessarily a software product. It can be a it can be a thought product, it can be actually a physical product. So it is equally applicable in all these areas. But the concept there is not citizen development, but a more deeper concept, which is distributed innovation and democratic, hackathons and that kind of stuff. I think is going to be very, very critical for that.
And when we talk about distributed innovation, I love that term, distributed innovation. I think it's a question from Vikas, who wants to know, how can this entire citizen development approach be used by organizations to build high-performing teams? I think high-performing teams deliver great value. Everybody knows that, but how can citizen development enable that, or can it?
It is. I think it's if you go back to, okay, let's again go back to the fundamental issue today. People, let's say in an organization, right? People are dissatisfied. There is always multiple reasons for a person dissatisfied, but one of the big reasons, which is maybe 40-50% of the time, that they are not happy with their job content. Now, the reason they're not happy with the job content can be of two kinds. One, they believe they have a lot more creativity, which they can maybe leverage, and this current job role is maybe not getting them lead that. Or they might be made to do redundant work, data entry, any kind of work which they think should be automated. Now, the first challenge hits pretty much in the citizen development program straightway, right? So if you launch a citizen development program, if you have people who want to contribute towards providing solutions, they get separate engaged. I mean, there are enough organizations. If I go back and look at Genpact, organizations, we have similar programs, we call it a Digital Warriors program, but wherever we have programs running like this, wherever we have a higher percentage of hackathons going, we have seen attrition in those areas being significantly lower because they feel engaged to a larger cause. And when they see finally their end product being used by them on the daily life, I think that's what their motivation really goes up. So engagement really goes up, and therefore it helps forming high-performing teams on the current job. Now, the second thing is removal of redundant work. If I look at, let's say, I am basically a data entry processor, and every day I'm going to come and download an Excel file from an ERP system, doing a 5 matches and doing that. Everyone knows, I've been trained enough, I have seen enough webinars from from PMI to know this can be automated. But when I go back to IT says I have 350 items in my backlog. So come back to me 8 months down the line. In 8 months, the person would have tried it. So what citizen development does, and automation is, I talked about various streams of citizen development, right? Workflows is one, automation is another one. Robotics platforms, what do they? All of them have is a strong citizen development program. It allows you to build your own small applications within the enterprise, which just removes the redundancy of your work. So in both the cases, it has a fantastic impact on overall the morale of the team, which is an essential ingredient of a high-performing team. Kaushik.
And since you brought about Microsoft Excel, does writing Microsoft Excel macros contribute as citizen development? Then I can say I did it in 2003 and put it in my CV.
Yes, of course, you should. You should. It was citizen development. The only question is that did your organization allow you to write macros? If they did, then technically it is.
They did. Yes, we did use it as well.
You are a certified citizen developer, Kaushik.
Thank you very much. This call is on record. So just going back into the tangent of serious questions again. This question, I think this is a question it's a buzzword, so we have to ask about it. How does citizen development work in the realm of AI and ML?
I think it's a very important question. But the more fundamental question is, how does AI and ML work in our current realms, right? I think while that's a more mute question, AI and ML is not relevant everywhere, right? It's only relevant in certain areas, at least the ones which are, value for money, right? Obviously it's an ROI for an AI and ML program. The associated concept in, again, evolved citizen development programs is, AI, if I go back to the heart of an AI and ML program, right, it is a set of algorithms. Now, if I take the concepts of citizen development, which starts with, modularity to reusability, to having enterprise apps, to having app stores, if you extend the full concepts of citizen development to a ecosystem citizen development environment, then if you look at any AI platform today, and if you add cloud onto the entire mix, if you have a cloud-based AI platform, you already have existing algorithms which people have leveraged and built. And every time they tweak it, like you might have an ingestion algorithm for maybe an invoice, you can take that and tweak it to a different kind of invoice, right? So, and then you can again post that back to the cloud, and it goes through its own sanitizing process, and it's available as in the marketplace for download. So the foundations of that have already been put into place. I won't say it is so widely prevalent, but the way the cloud providers, all the AI ML, if you look at Microsoft, you look at any of the AWS, all of them are looking at AI ML algorithms from that perspective. So they're inviting people to come, understand it. Once you understand the code, then you're able to put it back there. But it does require a higher degree of, let's say, understanding on how to modify an algorithm. So that is maybe a little bit of a higher curve which it needs to go through.
Right. And earlier when we were talking about it, and there are a few questions about security which you covered as a part of your discussion earlier. And you said you were more worried about data than about security, and I agree with you there. So the question from Viraj and a few other questions is, what are the big governance guidance that people need to have when you start on this journey? How do you get the best out of citizen developers without compromising any of your core IT or enterprise IT fundamentals like security or data principles or network? These are, I think, fundamentals. You can't play around with it. So
Yeah.
what are the key governance guidelines that you would expect people to start off with?
Yeah, it boils down to scoping, Kaushik, and obviously it has 5 steps before that, but it finally boils down to who has rights to do what kind of changes, right? I think that's what the essential one. I mean, in a 5-step methodology, we'll come at maybe 2.3 in the methodology step, and you have to go through that, and there are 5 more fundamental stuff behind it. But it finally, in a quick answer, that is what it boils down to. Now, if you're able to define it really well, and if you are able to govern it really well, it shouldn't be a challenge. In a lot of organizations, particularly in the starting stage of citizen development program, have a maker-checker model. While I don't think it's a sustainable model because it kind of defeats the purpose of citizen development, but for the first initial months or the years of an enterprise, you need a maker-checker model. So once you identify your scope and once you identify the applications you can build in, to add an additional level of challenge for a maker-checker model to maybe an IT person validating, reviewing the application before it really goes into production is generally put into place, and that really helps. Now, the checker model is equally important for data, and that again should fit into the overall organization's data governance process. Because if you're making change to any particular database, so you should be able to call out from the data map your logical mapping, and therefore saying this is the definition. The definition is not getting validated. So the maker-checker models works for that as well. It leveraging your existing data governance mechanisms are crucial for citizen development program. If you don't have one, then the organization anyways has a challenging task.
Bigger problem.
To make it more challenging for that perspective.
Great. And since you brought up the tantalizing term called war story, I'm going to finish with that. What is the one thing that you don't want any of us to do in this journey on citizen development? What's your biggest do not do this, whatever happens, war story or takeaway in your journey?
That's an interesting one. I think there is a eagerness. There is an eagerness to declare success. When you start a new initiative, there is just a organizational wide initiative or eagerness to declare success. The way citizen development work, and as I said, it's a distributed innovation mechanism, right? If you declare success, it creates a disproportionate impact on the ecosystem, and then the ecosystem starts reacting or tries to mimic that behavior which citizen development has really started. So I think we should be pretty deliberate about calling out that this is a model app, this is a model service being through citizen development. And declaring success too early sometimes drives behavior which is counterproductive to what the organization objectives are. So once you build it out, ensuring that it goes through the governance, talking about it in a deliberate manner, I think is going to be critical, because the counterpoint is, somebody has built, let's say, a customer facing app and they loved it. Suddenly you have 25 customer facing apps with absolutely no maintenance protocol, and all of them trying to change the data definition which you have at the back. Now that's a nightmare, because remember, the advantage and challenge with this model is the speed. So if you say something is great, it will just directly get it. So be deliberate in calling out successes, and I think that should be very, very useful.
Brilliant. And Shubhro, this has been absolutely fascinating, but we are 2 minutes from time, and I'm sure that we can go on for a couple of more hours. Thank you so much for joining us today on a weekend and helping us kickstart what has been a fabulous first episode of season 3 of Common Ground webinar. This is a PMI South Asia initiative, and you said we referenced data multiple times. The simplest piece of data is Saturday evening, 4:30, there are 380 people listening to you, asking questions, participating in polls. I think that's the biggest reflection of how well this has gone and how useful it has been. Srini, thank you again. You've always been present, our backbone, and today as well. I'm going to quickly cover some of the key announcements and things that are coming our way. Thank you, Shubhro and Srini, once again.
It's a pleasure.
Right.
Kaushik, if I could just add, it's a real privilege to have a true digital warrior in our midst today. So thank you, Shubhro. It's a real privilege. Thank you.
Welcome,
Srini. So to everyone, Srini did mention about the Citizen Developer Foundation course that's available at www.pmi.org/citizen-developer. And right now there is a limited time offer going. It's a course that's normally at $79, but you can purchase it at $29. It helps you unlock your journey towards, understanding the framework about citizen development and getting ahead of others. That is the first big announcement that I had for you all today. Moving on, this was the question that we hoped nobody would ask, but we did see it on the screen. The Pdu Claim Code, it will be sent out to all of you in the feedback email. I will also paste it on the screen. It is 2000 R3JJPP. I will also paste it on the chat window. You can claim one code as it under the technical domain for this particular event. You know how to do it, so I'm not going to go into the process of how to claim a PDU. The most exciting thing that I wanted to share with you all today is nominations are open for the PMI South Asia Awards 2021. The last date for nominations is 10th of April 2021. You can nominate yourself, projects that you have worked in, projects that your company or others have worked in around you. There is no restriction on the number of nominations that you can make, and there is no application fee to submit your nomination as well. The only date that you need to remember is 10th of April 2021. That's the last date for submitting your nominations. This is PMI South Asia Awards 2021. There are multiple categories under which awards can be won depending on the size of the project, including for NGOs and not-for-profits, small, medium, large projects. Some of the past winners have been L&T and Reliance and multiple NGOs. So this is open to all companies in the South Asia region, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. So nominate yourselves or your colleagues or any other projects that you might have heard of. More information is available in www.pmi.org.in/awards. It's also now visible on your screens. I'll pause here for you to note about this. This is a fantastic chance for projects to be recognized in South Asia and get the branding as PMI's best. This is an award program that's been running for over 10 years. And the good things continue. Please join us for an International Women's Day celebration. Registration again is free for everybody. We're going to have a topic or a panel discussion on choosing to rise with some extraordinarily amazing speakers from across the world. You can see the names on the screen. Otema Iranki, Vice President, PMI, Dr. Srini Srinivasan, Megan Speed from Public Relations Office in PMI, and Komal Mathur, who is the PMI South Asia Women Committee Chair, will be running a panel discussion. It is an International Women's Day celebration, but it is open to men as well. Again, like all PMI events, it's open to both members and non-members. With that, we wrap up for the day. The last thing that I want to tell you is welcome back to the Common Ground series. The Common Ground series this year is going to be once in a month, and look out for emails from PMI India, LinkedIn posts, follow us on Project Management Institute India LinkedIn page, and also on pmi.org.in/common ground. Please do share the word with your friends and colleagues to join future sessions. And Shubhro, thank you once again for a fantastic session. Srini, thank you very much. On behalf of Monica, Roger, Priya, and myself, signing off. Have a great weekend.